everybody. Taylor and Paula here from Beaten Jeans, and today we are doing our episode number 8 with Karissa. She is a CDH1 girl just like us, and she had her total gastrectomy 2 years ago. So she's celebrating her 2-year anniversary, and we have so many questions for her. So we're going to go ahead and bring her on right now. And just okay, so we still are in November, which means it's still this month, and we're hoping that if you were nominated to do the Icy Pants Challenge, you still do that. There's been a couple people who've done it, and it's been incredible. Thank you so much for your support, and yeah, so go to nostomachforcancer.org and donate that money. And hi, Karissa.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You look beautiful.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. You too.
How are you doing? Are you recovered from your recent trip to NIH?
I am. It's always a whirlwind, as you two know. I got home at about midnight on Friday night, so I just kind of laid low this weekend. And yeah.
It's a lot of travel. Tell us where are you? What state are you in?
I'm in South Dakota, so it's probably about the same length of trip for us to go there. It's kind of, it's a full day traveling there and back.
All day occurrence, definitely.
Yeah. Yep. So
and then you have to wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to get there to do the labs and everything.
Yes.
Like
yes.
2 o'clock in the morning your time.
Exactly. I know that was what I said. I was originally supposed to have an MRI on Friday at 7:30, which is 5:30 our time.
Right.
And then I wasn't going to get home until midnight that night. I'm like,
oh my God.
But they ended up doing it the day earlier, so that was kind of nice. I didn't have to be back at NIH at 5 a.m. our time.
Right. Good.
It's always good. It's always good to go out and see the clinical team and talk to everybody in person. So.
Right. And how'd it go? How's everything looking?
So far so good. I don't have all of my results back. The DEXA scan and the MRI hadn't come back by the time I left. So I'm hoping to get those results today. A little deficient in some things, but that's to be expected. So I got some injections, a B12 injection, a thiamine injection, and some different things like that before I left. So yeah, I mean, all things considered, it's looking pretty good. I actually think I'll be back. I've got one issue that we're kind of working on where I'm having some difficulty with my esophagus. And so I think I'll be back next month or maybe right after the holidays to do some scopes and a swallow test and some different things, see if we can get that figured out. But I feel night and day different than I did at my 1-year follow-up than I did my 2-year follow-up. It's been significantly different. So
good. Time heals, huh?
Yes, for sure. It's a... you know, as you guys know, because we all see the same doctor, you know, they're very realistic about expectations of recovery and that it will take a full year for you to feel kind of normal again after the fact. And I found that to be true. And it's not that you feel miserable the entire time, but it takes a long time for your energy to come back and for, you know, you to find a new routine. And it took about 15 months, I think, before I finally woke up one day and went, I feel pretty good, you know? And so, yeah, that checked out for me at least.
So, tell us your, the name of your blog. I've been reading your blog. It's amazing. If those of you watching haven't seen it, you need to check it out.
It's reverierising.com.
Reverie Rising.
Yes. And so when I was creating it, I didn't want to just talk about I didn't want Stomachless to be in the name, because my hope, and I think all of our hope, is that this is just like a part of my story, not the entire story of my life. And so I thought, I don't want to just peg myself into this hole about being stomachless, because it's not, it's a big component of things now, inevitably, but it's not who I am.
Right.
And so I wanted to be able to write about it because it was so important to me. When I first found out I was diagnosed with CDH1, to see other people's stories and see how they were dealing with it, see what it looked like on the other side after surgery, all of that. And so I wanted to be able to contribute to that for other people that were looking for that as well. But I didn't want to be just stuck in.
Right. You're a beautiful writer.
Thank you.
Oh, I
Appreciate that.
enjoy reading your blog so much.
Thank you. I'm gonna do a 2-year update as soon as I get kind of all of the information back from NIH on my DEXA and everything. I want to do another kind of roundup of what the last year looked like. But they get fewer and further between now, and I struggled a little bit with writing my story because I had complications and I didn't want to scare anybody. And so it took me a long time to write about my surgery experience because I wasn't going to be able to tell the story I was hoping I would get to tell about how I went seamlessly and I'm on the other side. And
I know that. I know that very
exactly.
well.
Yeah, you've dealt with the same thing.
Right.
Just on the other end, but
right.
Well, so I feel like we need to know both sides of the story before we go ahead and jump in because, we need to know what to expect, and you can't have expectations for such a big thing, big surgery. So I think it's great to hear your side and see all little bits and pieces of it. Unfortunately, you had to go through it. So
and ultimately, I've been asked before, like, do you have any regrets about it? And I don't. I've always said, like, would I do it again? Yes. But I'm glad I don't have to. You only have to remove your stomach once. So whether it's easy or not, it's over after that. So
don't have to worry about it anymore.
Right.
So take us back. So you had your stomach removed 2 years ago.
Yes.
How long was it between testing positive for CDH1 and having your stomach removed? And I also know that you have family members that
were affected by it.
Yes. So the short version of the story, I got diagnosed in January 2019 and I had my stomach removed in November of 2019. So about 11 months from start to finish, from finding out. My mom died of diffuse gastric cancer in the end of 2015. So about 3 years prior. And at the time, we didn't know anything about CDH1. Mm-hmm. And in fact, both her surgeon and her oncologist told us that this was kind of a fluke. As we know, diffuse gastric cancer is really rare. Hereditary diffuse gastric cancer has really high instances, but diffuse gastric cancer in and of itself is a pretty rare cancer. And so without any real knowledge of CDH1, they were like, this is a fluke. Her body malfunctioned and that's it. And they said, specifically, there's not really a component here that you need to be concerned about. There's no genetic component. So we just went on for 3 years, just blissfully unaware that that was even a thing. And it wasn't until the end of 2018, I just went into my gynecologist, which I've noticed this is a repeating story, which I think is wonderful, that there's so much genetic advocacy and screening with gynecologists, because that is maybe the only doctor some women see annually. But so my gynecologist wanted me to do genetic testing because my grandmother, my mom's mother, had died of ovarian cancer when I was in college, when I was 20. It was really advanced. So actually they're kind of guessing it was ovarian cancer because of the way it spread and how aggressive it was. But nobody really knew necessarily for sure what it was. So she wanted me to test to eliminate BRCA. And so I agreed to do it. They did my blood work that day and, in my appointment, and I just kind of went on with life. Well, then the genetic counselor called me, asked me some follow-up questions, and there's some spots in my family tree that I just don't know much about. And so she said, well, your insurance will cover a full panel. Do you want to just do a full genetic testing? And I said, sure, why not? And that's how I got the results. So it was kind of a lot of stars had to align in order for me to even find out about CDH1. And I think that's why I took it so seriously, so quickly too. And the average age of onset, all of this stuff keeps changing as time goes on and they add more people to these studies. But at the time it was, the average age of onset is 38 and you have an 83% chance of getting stomach cancer. Well, I just watched my mother die a pretty horrible death from stomach cancer. It was excruciating to watch her, it was a bad experience. I mean, it's never great to watch anybody die. But we essentially watched her starve to death and waste away in hospice. And so that being fresh in my mind, I was like, well, I don't want to do that. So I knew almost immediately that I wasn't going to have a stomach. I was like, I didn't know you could live without a stomach until today, but I guess I'm going to figure out how. At the time I was 34, going to be 35 that year. And I just, so that 38 felt really close to, it felt like it was like a ticking time bomb in my body, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
And so I knew that I just wanted to do it, and I wanted to do it as quickly as possible. And so I did a couple scopes here locally and tried to get involved with a study at Mayo Clinic, and my insurance was giving me some trouble about it. And then I found the study at NIH and ended up being really relieved that some of the other stuff didn't work out, just because I think NIH is where I need and want to be. Ultimately, there's such a complete team of care there that you just don't necessarily get in some other facilities. Not that they're not wonderful, but we have a lot of follow-up care. We're really lucky there. So yeah, so that was how I found out about it. It was sort of a fluke. And so, you know, call it fate, God, the universe, whatever. I was like, somebody somewhere wants me to have this information, and so I'm going to
sure. Everything was like clicking in your head, like, oh my gosh, my mom, my grandma, this all makes sense now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Wow, just connecting all the pieces.
And do you have brothers and sisters? Are you an only child?
I have one sister, and she is yet to be tested. It's a bit of a point of contention for us.
Is she younger than you or older?
She's younger than me. She is. She's 9 years younger than me, and so in her mind, it is. It's very similar. And so in her mind, she's like, well, I have more time. And in my mind, I'm like, but if you just know, then you know one way or another. And what if you don't have it? And then there's nothing even to worry about at this point, and you can just kind of check it off of your list.
Right.
I hope that she eventually gets tested, but it's ultimately up to her if and when she decides to do that. So
yeah, I know when we got tested. Our brother.
It took our brother 6 years to get tested.
Yeah. So
I do teenage girls, and he's like, I have to do it for them.
Exactly. Yeah. She just got married last month, and so I'm kind of hoping that maybe, you know, now as life becomes more family focused and all of that, that she will reconsider. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see where she ends up on that.
So tell us about your surgery and how that went.
We know that there was a lot involved.
Yeah. So, well, surgery itself went great. I mean, it was pretty standard. I had surgery at NIH, and they do an open surgery there, as you all know, and maybe some other people have already talked about. And they do that because there is less risk for complication, and the way he's able to suture everything back up gives you a better long-term recovery. Like, things are easier down the road. So that was all pretty seamless. No real complications from surgery. They do give you're on an epidural though for about 5 days. And so I was kind of unaware that I was having problems for 5 days. And in hindsight, looking back, I was actually having a lot of breakthrough pain, but I'd never had a surgery of this magnitude before. So I didn't know that was necessary. And I'd never had an epidural before. So I didn't know if that was common or uncommon, but as the days were going on, I was having to push my pain pump quite a bit, and it was uncomfortable. I couldn't like lay down, even elevated in the bed. It was just, things were getting bad. But I just thought it was part of the healing process. I mean, you expect to be in pain after you've been cut open, have a 5-inch incision on your body, and so the day they took my epidural out, by about 20 minutes later, I couldn't even speak. I was in so much pain, and it was just like, I mean, that comes on awfully quick then. And from there I was, they did a scan and then went into surgery because I had a leak in my join site. And so my abdomen was essentially filling with bile. So they put in a drain to drain it, and a stent in my esophagus to kind of like help hold it in place so that it could heal. And then from that, I then ended up with a collapsed lung, with fluid on my lung. So the lower like quadrant of my left lung collapsed as well. So then I had to have another drain placed on my lung to drain that. And I ended up being at NIH for just shy of a month.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it was it was not the way I expected it to go by any
No,
stretch.
no. And so you probably weren't eating much with all of it going
couldn't
on.
eat at all. No, couldn't eat at all. So when you have a stent placed, you can't have any food. I mean, I could only have liquid. And so that, I think, really affected the beginning of my healing process, because I was able to like eat ice chips and, you know, like sip protein shakes and everything, but also the pain I was in. I was on so many drugs that I could have
knocked you out, probably.
Yeah, I couldn't see. Like, people would be texting me and I couldn't read. It felt like I was wearing glasses and took them off. Like, I couldn't focus on anything. And so, like, nothing sounded good. And you know, like, if you're sick or recovering from a surgery, you don't have much appetite anyway. Well, now I've also removed the organ that tells your brain to eat. Those hormones and everything aren't there anymore. And so it was really a struggle for me to go from pretty much not eating for a month to then have to come home and introduce food and really start that. I think I had a little bit of a slower beginning than most people, because I did eat in the hospital before they took out my epidural. I did eat for 2 days. You know, I had the typical, I had mashed potatoes and diluted grape juice and I had mac and cheese, I think, or eggs or something like that. But then from that point on, there was no food.
Wow.
So it was a really tough beginning of the road. And I just, so it was, those first couple months are kind of hazy, if I'm being honest. Like, I was in and out of, you know, a couple of surgeries in order to place the stents, place the drains, remove them, check on them, x-rays every day. I mean, it was a lot. And so I started getting, you know, I don't think I had any thoughts while I was in the hospital, because again, lots of drugs. But when I got home, I kind of started having some panic attacks about, like, what is life really? Is it always going to be this hard? Is it always going to be? It was the first time and the only time I really thought, like, did I make a mistake?
Right.
And so
you could process it because you were full of drugs.
Exactly. I finally had my brain back. And so it was one of those things where I just thought, like, I don't know what I knew it was going to be hard. I didn't know it was going to be this hard. And I think it probably does feel like that for everybody to some degree, because you can only, you know, prepare so much. Like, I was in therapy. I was, you know, doing all of this stuff. I had talked to the team. I had prepared my home. I was as prepared as I could possibly be, but you can only be so prepared until you're in the middle of it. And so, you know, I'm sure that it feels that way to some degree for everybody after the surgery. So you said that they put a stent on your esophagus, and is that why you're continuing to have issues with your possibly. I also had really bad bile reflux all of last year, and it took us a long time to figure out, like, the best combination of things to kind of calm that down. And so I had pretty bad esophagitis because of that too, and that can cause scar tissue. And so there could be some scar tissue built up in there. Could be a motility issue, meaning that there's just one part of my esophagus that isn't working the same as the rest. And so in order to figure out how to fix it, we just have to figure out what the problem is first. But so essentially the problem I'm having is I still, every so often, things will get stuck, like, kind of right at my, like, sternum. And when it gets stuck there, it will not, it's almost like a Charlie horse in my esophagus. Like, it's like, it squeezes really tight. Nothing will get past it. And so I either have to bring it up, or it will just, like, spasm for, I mean, one time it did it for 4 hours, and it's, like, unbearable. Thankfully, only one time that happened, but it's pretty unbearable. And it doesn't happen, like, every day, but there's also no rhyme or reason to, like, why or how it happens. Like, it's sort of, I could take a drink of water and it can happen. I could eat a bite of food and I mean,
just solids.
Yeah, it's not, and it's not necessarily like, avoid meat because it's hard to chew, or only eat soft things, or it can be pretty much anything. I mean, the last thing it happened actually in Bethesda. I was out at dinner and the night before all of my clinic visits, and I ate a Brussels sprout, and I'm like, that is not a tough thing to swallow. So I don't know what the problem is. It's hard to tell, like, what.
Well, thank goodness they're going to get you back out there. And I know a lot of people who've been doing the dilation. Are they talking about doing that with you? Like dilation?
Potentially. So if it's a stricture and it's narrowing, then he'll dilate it to make it the size it's supposed to be. If it's a motility issue, I think that will be more of a medication until my body like relearns how to work. It's almost like he kind of explained it that like if it's a motility issue, part of my esophagus is like being lazy or has forgotten how to do its job. And so there, it could be one of those two things. It could be something else. It could just be it could just be some esophagitis still, maybe, and some irritation. I do still get reflux, not nearly the way I used to, but I still do get it from time to time. And so maybe there's just still some irritation, but we just don't know.
Hopefully they get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, until we get in there. But
yeah. So I want to know, like, what's the biggest difference that you've noticed besides like hunger from having a stomach to not having a stomach? Like, what's the biggest thing that's changed in your life?
I would say, well, hunger is obviously part of it. It's very easy to just like forget to eat, and people can't wrap their head around that. But it's very easy to override. And I do feel hunger. Not everybody does. I do feel it's a different kind of hunger now than I used to feel before. If anything, you feel more like you feel hollow. You feel empty. Like I can tell I need to eat. But if you're having like a really busy day, I work for myself. So for example, if I'm just like out and about and running between places during the day, it's very easy for me to just like override that idea that I need to eat. So if you're not very like disciplined about it, you get other hunger cues later, like a headache, or all of a sudden you're like, why am I so snappy at everybody and everything? Wow, I need to eat something. So that is kind of interesting. It's 2 years out, I'm still getting used to the fact that like I need to have stuff with me all the time because I never know.
Little snack bags.
Yeah, I'm like I feel like a mom on a field trip all the time, just like all the snacks in my purse. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a part of it. I would say the other thing is energy levels. I can't go the way I used to because you just get depleted faster. You're not getting quite the same nutrients from your food. And so you're not getting the same level of energy kind of like stored up in your body either. And so at the end of the day, I am tired. You know what I mean?
Right.
7 p.m. comes and I'm like, don't ask me to do anything with my brain. Like, if somebody tells me something at dinner that I actually need to remember, I'm like, I'm gonna need you to text that to me because I'm not gonna remember that tomorrow.
Oh no.
So that's a little bit of an adjustment, but I think part of that might also be, like I just said, I was deficient in some things too. And B12, getting it, that made a world of difference. Getting a B12 shot, I was
Did it like right away?
Yes, because the next day was that super long day of travel. I checked out of my hotel at like 9 a.m. and like I said, I got back to my house it was a little after midnight that night. And there's no way I could have sustained all of that, I don't think, without that B12 shot.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And so it really is important to stay on top of all of your like supplements and vitamins really after this surgery. A lot of people, quote unquote normal people don't really need to take vitamins if they're eating like a healthy balanced diet, but we just don't absorb food, or we don't absorb nutrients the same way from our food. We don't have as much of an opportunity to do so, and so we have to supplement it. And so that was like case in point to me. I don't think it could have been psychosomatic, who knows, but I don't think it was.
Yeah.
So I felt less.
So do you have a doctor in town that you go to that like does regular blood checkups on you just to see if you're deficient, or you just go every year to NIH? Just
to NIH. I mean, I do see somebody here on occasion, but I don't do any I don't really do any follow-up in between. I think if I needed to, if I had a question about something that was specific that didn't seem like it was more suited for the NIH team, then I would do that here. But I mean, thus far, I haven't really needed to. And that is the other thing that I want to say. Like, I had a lot of complications in the beginning, but I feel pretty fortunate overall. Like, I don't have any issues with food. I don't have any intolerances or anything like that came up. I don't have a lot of other complications. So it was like I got all my stuff out of the way early. Like, let's just have a hard time at the beginning, and then maybe it'll be smooth sailing from there.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't follow up too often here locally, but yeah, I do have a couple different people that are aware of my story that are involved in my care. So
okay, so you're able to eat whatever you want.
Yeah, the only thing that I kind of stay away from that I miss dearly is spicy foods. And I'm hoping that I can reintroduce those as time goes on, as the bile reflux kind of settles down, that maybe those will be easier. But I really miss like hot sauce and things like that.
That would be hard.
I can eat everything. Like, there are certain people that have a hard time with, you know, like dairy products and certain, and like sugar sometimes, and yeah, and so they like have a hard time digesting those things, or they have a hard time with sugar. Everybody has a hard time with sugar, but I feel like I have less of I can tolerate more of it than other people can. Like, I can eat a yogurt or something like that, for example, and not have any worry of it sending me into late dumping or anything like that, hypoglycemia. And so it's been nice, because for a long time after surgery, my philosophy was sort of like, I have to eat whatever works, rather than really focusing so much on nutrients, because what was really important was just like getting food in my body.
Right.
And you know, talking with the dietitian, it's so different. The way what's healthy for us after surgery is different than what's healthy for a person before surgery. So especially right after surgery, you're focused on calorie dense, protein dense foods. So like high fat is great. Like, I mean, there was times where she was like, just put oil or salad dressing on everything, you know, and like, or butter or whatever. And, you know, most people are like, well, I would love to eat like that. I'm like, okay, but I can eat about 4 bites at a time.
Right.
Great.
Oh my God.
That's why I have to really make them count. And so, you know, it's just, it was like relearning that and just going, what can I keep down? Like, that's what's most important, because some calories, even if it's maybe like not the most perfectly nutrient dense food, is still better than no calories from eating nothing because you're nauseous. And that was hard for me, because I'm a bit of a, like, I'm pretty type A, like, you tell me how to do something, I want to do it that way. And so learning how to relax some of that stuff, it was, you know, it took me a while to get there. but
so
yeah,
you had your gastrectomy right around Thanksgiving, and I know it's probably really hard for you because, of course, you've lost your mom. So Thanksgiving is probably difficult. But how is it going to be Thanksgiving? I mean, how is it? Do you avoid it, or do you still?
No, I mean, so I was in the hospital on Thanksgiving in 2019. So last year was my first real experience with it, and with it being, we did have like a small family get together, and I was able to eat. And honestly, things like Thanksgiving are great when you don't have a stomach, because the food is out for a while. You know what I mean? And so you just kind of think, or like
crazy.
Super Bowl parties, things like that, where you're just like grace throughout the evening. That's perfect for me, because I eat, and then you know, an hour later I eat again, and then I eat again, and you pull out and so it's pretty easy, and I can eat a lot more now than I used to. But so, you know, it's kind of like how you would fix a plate for a kid. Maybe it's just like a bite of everything, but I still get to experience and enjoy all of it. So yeah.
Oh, cool. What are you doing for Thanksgiving this year?
We're having family Thanksgiving at my aunt's house, so I've been assigned to bring like appetizers and a pie. So
good.
That'll be my my contribution. I don't have to do any of the big pieces. I don't have to do the turkey or anything like that. So yeah.
Well, you look absolutely amazing.
You look so beautiful. Thank you. It's so good talking to everyone. Everyone that we've talked to has been like beautiful and like glowing. Like, let's just go do it.
Yeah, it's not so bad. It's not so bad, I promise. Like I said, it's really those first few months are tough, and then it continues to get easier, and then at some point you just go, I don't know when I started feeling more like myself, but I feel like myself. Like it just kind of sneaks up on you. So
That's
yeah,
good to know.
comes back.
Yeah. Don't get so lost in all that bad stuff in the beginning, huh?
Yeah, for sure. And I think obviously this is it's a big decision to make to do it. And so I know, I know that you two are doing surveillance, and I know some other people that have opted to do surveillance, and, only you guys can decide if and when you want to do that surgery. But I hope that people know that it is not it's not a sentence for a different kind of life afterwards. It's not, you will live a very full and happy life afterwards. And I think that's what I want people to understand, that even if it feels hard in the beginning, it won't always feel that way,
That's good.
And exactly like you said, Polly had, such troubles with her surgery journey this last year on the mastectomy side of things. And it's just kind of like that. Now that you're on the other side of it, you're like, okay, life is, more normal, but in the middle of it, you're kind of going, is this ever are we ever gonna get to the end of this road?
Right.
It's probably very similar to how that journey felt for you. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yes, of course. Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today. It was
Yes.
so wonderful talking to you and seeing you face to face.
I know. It's like we've talked online lots, but I've never got to talk to you guys live before.
I
So
know.
It's really nice.
So everybody who's watching and everyone who will watch, go check out her blog,
Reverie Rising.
Reverie Rising. It's awesome.
ReverieRising.com.
Thank you.
All right.
All
Well, happy
right.
Thanksgiving.
Same to you. Same to you.
Thanks
We'll
so
talk
much,
to you later.
Karissa.
We appreciate everything opening up to us. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.